So hyperfocus is a phenomenon that reflects a person's complete absorption in a task to the point where they seem to ignore or tune out everything else. You're engrossed in activity. It's almost like you're in a dream and you can't really, it's harder to extricate yourself from this. If someone's talking to you or calling your name, it doesn't really register because you're super focused on the thing in front of you. Um, it's generally reported to occur when someone is engaged in activity that is particularly fun or interesting. An example of hyperfocus, and some of you wrote this, might be when a child becomes engrossed in a video game to a point when they don't hear a parent calling their name. Um, although some neurotypical people would likely report experience a hyperfocus-like state at some point in their lives. It's most mentioned in the context of higher functioning autism, level 1 autism, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, conditions that have and reflect issues with attention. This concentration can be so intense that someone could lose track of time, other chores, or the surrounding environment. While this level of intensity can be channeled into difficult tasks such as work or homework, the downside is that people with ADHD can become immersed in unproductive activities while ignoring pressing responsibilities. So this can go into what we've talked about before in terms of productive procrastination, that you'll get so engrossed in other things that you enjoy that aren't the task at hand, that the task at hand will fade into the background and you'll almost forget about it. So let me see, I have some more things here. Okay. Harlan, hi Harlan. Music, one band or artist at a time. Elliot, daughter, anything other than schoolwork. Yes, this happens all the time. Nancy, I wish I had hyperfocus at work, on my full-time job. It's boring and mundane. Karen, love to listen to you. My son is constantly washing his hands now, is sore, so it helps to know we are not alone. You are not alone, Karen. We are all here with you. Getting stuck in teeny repetitive tasks. Mary, yep, that's me. Okay, great. So I'd like to hear from you, if you could put in the chat, what are some of the benefits of hyperfocus for you? What are some reasons that you think, hyperfocus is good for me? It helps me with blah, blah, blah. So I'd like you to identify some of the benefits of hyperfocus. Now, while you're doing that, I'm going to share that there's a difference between flow, which was written, this wonderful book by Mihaly, and I cannot pronounce his name. I'm so sorry, but it's spelled this way. I'll put it up here for you. This is a great book called Flow, and that's the author. And he talked about that flow can be experienced by all people, and most people will experience flow at many times in their lifetime. And hyperfocus is defined as extreme focus on a particular task, in which time falls away and the task at hand becomes the only point of attention. And that's different than flow, because flow is you're in a state, you're moving and you're grooving, but you're not like so zoomed into it that you're not aware of where you are. So let's see what some of the positives are of a hyperfocus for y'all. Adhd. Brandy Carlisle's new album, still on repeat since October, still not tired of it. Okay, got it. Amanda, you get more skills. Harlan, I get my stuff done over and done. Ha ha. Karen, it's a good distraction. Time goes by fast. That's true. Thank you, Adhd, for posting that. The rest of the world is tuned out, says Craig. It's a Hungarian name. Yes, I can't pronounce it and I don't want to butcher it, so I'm not even going to try. And Cameron, it helps create solutions to problems in a short amount of time. We get unique ideas when we hyperfocus on that others don't think about. Jill, I can hyperfocus on Netflix, decorating the home. I keep a lovely home and it's clean despite that we have multiple pets. We usually order everything we need and then some to keep us organized as a family. Well, hyperfocus on organization seems to be serving you pretty well, which is great. Nancy, my creative outlet, writing, painting, completing a painting, playing the piano. Melissa, it helps me complete projects or tasks when I have a very near deadline. Brandon, a benefit for me is usually getting a major portion of a project or something important done. It gives me a reward. You know, it does feel good if you're really focused on something and then you get it done. That's helpful. Emma, the things I hyper focus on, I never give up until I found an answer. Okay. Zoe, well, hopefully a good outcome for my MSc. Kara, hyperfocus can feel like leisure for me sometimes, getting to dive into something that interests me a lot. I understand that. That also could be a fine line between that and flow. So we'll look at that in a minute. Heather, it makes me a really good researcher because I will work on a problem until it's solved. Amanda, I get more spoons energy. What is spoons energy? Would you share that? Also me, but with podcasts, my 12 cats appreciate that. Jill, sometimes I can start with a plan and then make a mess and leave multiple things unfinished and create more chaos. Okay, so that is not a benefit. So I want to say something more about flow, because in his book, um, check I really can't say it. It's so embarrassing. It's going to go on the web and I won't know how to say it. But he quotes a composer who says, when you're in the flow, you're in an ecstatic state to such a point that you feel as though you almost don't exist. I've experienced this again and again. My hand seems devoid of myself. I have nothing to do with what's happening. I just sit there and watch it in a state of awe and wonderment, and the music just flows out of yourself. So this is a composer that the author interviewed, which is kind of interesting. It's like flow is a state of pleasure. You're working on it. I think some hyperfocus can actually include flow, and it may not be a difference necessarily. Let's see. John, I'm diagnosed with autism and ADHD, but not aware of hyperfocus. Where can I get more information, please? Spoons, energy reserves. Okay, Attitude is sharing that. Annie, could you share an article on hyperfocus? I know there's a couple good ones on Attitude. Maria, when I get into hyperfocus cleaning mode, I get into it and get a lot done. You know, I can see doing that. You know, like I put on some dance music and I'm into it. I'm doing it. Sometimes I do that when I'm making a presentation. I'll just put the music on and like get into it and try to go through it. That can help me. Chicks send me hai. Chicks send me a hai. Thank you for saying that, Karen. Csikszentmihalyi. Okay, got it. Csikszentmihalyi. Got it. Okay. Good. Can't believe you're all seeing me struggle with this, but it's Friday. What can I say? So, what are some of now? Some people who focus have some hyperfocus have some concerns about it, mostly getting out of it. Like if I stop my hyperfocus, even though I've been working on something for 4 hours and I haven't eaten or had a drink or gone to the bathroom, you know, not with all of those things which are not very helpful or good for you. Will I be able to get back in the thing I was doing? Often one of my clients said, I don't stop because I don't know if I can get back in. And I get into this mentality, if I could just do one more thing, I'll make this time even more productive. So you just keep going and going. And what happens during this time with hyperfocus, which is something we want to think about, is that we're using up, while we're thinking so hard, we're using up fuel in our brain, those energy reserves. And that's glucose. And so the glucose centers in our brain, you know, are depleted because we're thinking, we're focused, we're on it. And if we spend time doing that and we're not eating, or we're not taking a bathroom break, or we're not drinking, there are a couple of challenges that we're facing. One, physiological, right? Because we're not actually taking care of ourselves. That doesn't help that engine run. And two, we're not giving ourselves time to integrate the work that we're doing. So I think hyperfocus can be very useful, particularly if you're gonna do it for maybe a period of time, and we need to talk about how much time that is, and then give yourself time to take a break, take a walk, have a snack, to integrate, to just take your brain outside of it. But in order to do that, you've got to leave yourself notes about where you were and what you're thinking about. And that's the important thing. So if you're writing or working on a project, you leave yourself, you just empty out your head. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be grammatically correct or anything. So then when you come back, you know what to go to. So let's see what some people are saying here. Um, my son learns loads in his hyperfocus and explains so much science. So again, hyperfocus can be super helpful because you are really engaged in something that you like and you enjoy. Thank you, Nancy. Um, Maria, I hyperfocus when I'm arguing with someone about something I believe in. My family hates it because I don't back off. And it goes on for quite a while. I struggle to remove myself from the situation. Right. So that's hard because you're triggered in a way, and because you're triggered in a way, you're on a roll, and then you don't know, like you're not sort of aware of how that roll is affecting other people, um, and um, and what the fact that they might need a break, because you're super energized and you know got the idea that you want to make sure you share. Kara, hyperfocus does take up a lot of energy, but sometimes it also gives me endorphins. Great. So I feel emotionally re-energized once I come out of it. That's fantastic. That's a really important point. Jill, I'm no longer in the working world, but I used to hyperfocus in my job, and I would go for hours and forget to eat and hydrate. And now my seventh grader is the same. I worry about this constantly. Well, we do get kids who reflect, who hold up a mirror to us to reflect our traits. Um, Spoons are the amount of energy that we have or we don't have, depending on my energy level. So I might have one spoon to spend on something that drains me. I might gain them by resting, doing things I enjoy, special interests. Well, this is so interesting. I'm learning something today, which is one of the many reasons I love doing these Facebook Live sessions. Alana, good self-awareness though. Karen, I actually know why I'm like I am at 49 before my son, due to my son never realized it before. Interesting. Okay, so what are some of the concerns that you have about hyperfocus? So we've identified a lot of benefits, which is great. And I think this is why people often refer to hyperfocus as a superpower of ADHD. But what are some of the detriments or the concerns you have about hyperfocus? Karen, Jill shared about not eating for hours and watching your child do the same thing. Heather is also sharing, my daughter will forget to eat when she's hyper-focused. What are some of the other challenges that you see with hyper-focus? Someone says, I think extroverted and introverted people have different experiences of hyper-focus. I think that's probably very true. Those with ADD. Jojo asks, how do you differentiate between hyperfocus and regular focus? How do you know? I think hyperfocus is, to me, it's a more extreme version of focus. Focus is, you put your hand on your forehead. Where is the spotlight of my attention? Oh, okay, what I'm paying attention to is this. This is what I'm working on. Hyperfocus is everything else has fallen away, and the only thing that I'm paying attention to and engaged with is the task or the activity that I'm hyper-focused on. I mentioned before that sometimes when I clean, I like to put the dance music on and dance in the kitchen. I'm not hyper-focused. I'm just trying to get in the flow of cleaning. Someone who was hyper-focused would not stop in their cleaning until it was, in a particular kind of way, well beyond what most of us might see as clean. Not taking care of one's health. Other people don't understand it. Thank you, Monica. Okay. Forgetting to eat, sleep, and hydrate. Getting irritable afterwards. Yes, because of that depletion. Hi, Michelle. Hard to move on to something else. Yes. You forget to pick up your children. Yes. Karen, a sense of urgency, which means stress. Right. So that's what I was kind of talking about before, that when you hyperfocus for long periods of time, it's like a stress reaction in your brain. And that's why the cortisol levels go up but the glucose centers go down. So now you're running kind of on fumes. Jill, safety can be compromised, especially with kids and the internet. I agree. It's addicting, difficult to get out of it, and it's a waste of time, particularly if the thing you're focused on is something that's counter to the productive things that you have to do. And that kind of leads into some of the productive procrastination we've discussed. You're hyper-focused on online shopping instead of doing your taxes, for example. Maria, I end up not doing the important tasks because I hyper focus on reading and watching TV. Yes. And then that happens with productive procrastination. So you're doing something else, which is a worthwhile task, but it's a less demanding task because it's not pushing your executive functioning challenges, or it's not pushing you to be interested in and attend to something that isn't that compelling for you. John says there is no such thing as regular focus with ADHD. I think actually, John, there can be less, I think there can be, because there can be sort of moderate focus on something that you're doing and then hyper focus. And moderate focus would be when you're doing something, but you're more aware of your surroundings and probably you're a little more distractible. Craig says, transitioning out of hyperfocusing can be challenging. Sometimes I get frustrated repeating myself to my son, but I dislike transitioning at times too. And this is something we want to think about. Like if our kids are gaming, for example, that you want to create and really follow some sort of schedule for common hyper-focus activities. So to restrict time with television or games to help your kids transition off an activity where they hyper-focus to, which is a high dopamine reward activity, to something that's a lower dopamine activity, requires a lot of self-control, impulse control, and emotional control for a child or a teen, and sometimes for an adult. And sometimes what we want to do is we want to help kids actually have some phrases they can say to themselves in that process. I've stopped playing my game. I'm now walking into another room because I'm going to eat dinner. I'm leaving the gaming and I'm going to play cards with my mother, or I'm leaving the gaming and we're going for a run. To actually articulate what you're shifting to can help you in small ways with that transition because you're naming it, and by using language, you're now engaging some attention and you're putting some value on it. One of the challenges, Karen says, is losing track of time and forgetting appointments. Rochelle, says, I work with others and sometimes I want to keep going to get the job done and struggle to shift when I want to. The struggle is real, absolutely, because the other people may want to shift and you may not be ready, and you want to do a good job. So that sounds challenging. Lisa, procrastinating the more important things because I'm caught up on something I'm more interested in. Exactly. Cameron, spending money on something you're hyper-focused on and 2 days later having no interest. Oy, I hope it has a return policy. Big time investment by Karen. Kara, not having a sense of balance in what I accomplish versus what I need to do. This is really an interesting statement, Kara. Thank you for saying that it's hard to have perspective in what you accomplish. That always the to-do list seems so much longer than I've done it list. I feel I feel that way in my own life. Like I have long to-do lists, and I'm like, when is the to-do list ever over? I'm trying to remember back. Like I remember in college, I would make a to-do list, and I would be able to cross everything off, and I'd be like, oh, okay, now I can relax. But that's not how it works in adulthood. There are always things to do, and so that leads to struggles with prioritization, like what's urgent and important, what's something that is, I'm in the flow, it's productive, there's no pressure to get it done, but it's still important, it's something I value. Thank you for bringing that up. And I think having some balance is to be able to look at a to-do list, do a brain dump of however many things, 10, 15, 20, and then pick 3 of them. and work on those 3. And then when those are done, you can cross them off the bigger list, but you can also cross them off your small list and be like, I finished something. We have to remind ourselves of what we're accomplishing along the way. No one is going to do that for us. If it takes concentration to do the task and take a break, I can get distracted and not be interested in returning to it. Yes, and that's why your break has to be timed, and you have to have alerts for that because you're not interested. So you need to leave yourself a note about how to re-enter the thing that you are doing that is less interesting than the break task, and then a boundary, or maybe someone in your world who can help you kind of redirect. I think the other thing that we want to think about is to create activities for your break that are not overly interesting. So they're not high dopamine activities. They may be higher dopamine than that report you're working on, but they're not the same as your favorite things. So something for me might be, I'm going to take a walk outside. I love to walk outside, but I don't love to walk outside when it's below 25 degrees, or lately it's been so cold here, so 20 degrees. I have to really work hard to bundle myself up, get out there, and then like after 15 or 20 minutes I'm cold, so I'll come home. So we want to try to that's nice, like I like to be outside, but it's not as nice as the idea of coming inside, even though there's work to do. So you want to sort of think about what how you're setting up your scales of balance. Mary, okay. Heather, missing emails, meetings. Melissa, this is worse when I am not at work and on holiday. I avoid important projects such as completing university, not cleaning my cats or house, forgetting to shower and hydrate. Then I get paralysis and can get dressed. I avoid life because I haven't finished the right things. Yes, sometimes when you're in school and you're working, or you have a schedule, it kind of keeps you on a routine. And when that stops, you may flounder and feel a little bit lost. Susan, it helped me get through art school. Hyperfocus, great. Alana, do video games count for hyperfocus, or is that more traditional screen addiction? My son would play with no break for 24 hours if I let him. Don't worry, I don't let it go this long. Yes, video games do count for ADHD hyperfocus. And, you know, World Health Organization has diagnosed a screen addiction. Yes, it's hyperfocus, and in some cases can be a screen addiction. I think video games are really detrimental when we hyperfocus on them and ignore our spouse, family, or job, etc. Technology definitely takes away from attention we need to give to others. I'm 62 years old and just starting to understand myself. I have not been formally diagnosed, but have been told many times by doctors and teachers they thought I was lazy in the 1960s and needed to pay attention. My mother could not beat it out of me. It's nice to see the progress we've made. I'm hopeful for my young son, who is in his 20s. So as usual, off traffic, but wanted to say thank you, thank you. I'm sharing your stuff with my friends and family. It definitely runs in our DNA on my side of the family. Oh, you're so welcome. I can't read your name, but I see your beautiful picture. Thank you. I'm glad you're here, and I hope you'll keep coming. Kayla, is there a self-help book or course you recommend on ADHD? Kayla, there are lots of books on ADHD, and of course I recommend all the webinars through Adhd magazine. In a small shameless self-promotion, I recommend my book. Even though you're an adult, it might be helpful, and I certainly recommend a number of resources on my website as well. Amanda says, yes, you forget or put off other important tasks. Stacy, I always used to procrastinate and use that pressure to hyperfocus. I hope you can hear me. Can you all hear me still? I have always used to procrastinate and use that pressure to hyperfocus. Sorry, my computer did something weird. My son doesn't do that. He just gets frozen in the anxiety. Yes, so you know, anxiety related to getting tasks done is common for a lot of people with ADHD. You know, it kind of falls in, there are 3 types of anxiety related to procrastination: perfectionism, avoidance, and productive. Sometimes these all overlap. So we want to kind of understand which of the procrastination types he's falling under, and then to help him learn how to approach it in small pieces, because if we break things down, it's easier. No, ADHD is still used. Um, switch from ADHD and everything is now ADD. No, that's not true. ADHD is the formal diagnostic term. ADD is used in common parlance for inattentive ADHD. Mindfulness meditation has helped me more than anything, but I was taught by a monk. Awesome. Amanda, microtransactions can be hard due to executive functioning. Yes, that's true. Funny story, Megan shares. I worked as an ABA implementer. Okay, so that's a behavior. Maybe you want to say what that is, but I think it's applied behavioral analysis. An analyst. They had us all do an ADHD test where they gave us a complicated math problem that we had to solve while others constantly tried to distract us. I hyper focused and got it done. I was the only one. Therefore, I was the only one there who couldn't have had ADHD. Ha ha ha. That's a very funny story, actually. Faith, that is really helpful. Michelle, I agree with you for the hyperfocus and a more normal level of focus and being easily distracted. I get that when I have to read important documents. I'm focused, but not enough not to end up reading the same sentence a million times. Lorelei, this explains so much of my challenges. Thank you. Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Maria, I'm constantly late for things because I underestimate how much time I take to do things and get places. I procrastinate getting going. So that's more about time management and less about hyperfocus. I underestimate how long things take sometimes too, or I think I'm somehow overly competent. I can do more things in a given amount of time than I can actually accomplish. Craig, I have to use Alexa or my phone to remind me about appointments, alarms, and reminders. Great that you have figured that out and you have used that tool. That tool has helped many, many people. Faith, my 15-year-old son and I struggle with hyperfocus as a means of escape from stress, video games, shopping. We are both seeing the costs of it, but the lure of dopamine is so strong. Isn't that so? What is a way to break that as a bad family habit when we sometimes go as many as 4 or 5 hours? Okay, so I think the thing that I would do, Faith, is I would ask you, how long do you want to go? Like, what is your ideal amount? So I'm going to use 2 hours just for the sake of math. And then what I would do is I would set a banner to fly across your screen at 90 minutes, at 110 minutes, so at an hour and a half, an hour and 3/4, and then at 5 minutes, I'd have all kinds of warning signs. So I think that that would help you because you know, the lure of the dopamine is strong. And then I would be very clear of what you're going to go to, because one of the problems with getting out of hyperfocus is whatever you go to next is not as compelling. It's just your brain is so like supercharged and energized, or maybe depleted, depending on your brain. It's hard to shift, right? So we're talking about the shift part of the flexibility of the ADHD brain. And so you want to set up something that you're shifting to. And although it's going to be a bumpy transition, you have something specific to go to. This is particularly true for kids and teens when they're gaming, and even adults. To get off your game to nothing is not going to be appealing. To get off your game because we play cards right away when you get off, or to get off your game because you know, we are gonna you know, pick a special dinner and watch a family movie. Those things can incite people to get off the game, as well as tying how someone gets off the activity to earning the bonus time on the activity on another day. So maybe, you know, you set the rule that you have 90 minutes of screen time every day, but if you get off at the time that you say you're going to, you can earn a 30-minute bonus for the following day. Something like that that incentivizes you and your kids. There are so many comments. Wow. Alyssa says, I'm the spouse parent and they're hyper focusing to the point that they can't see other things around them that need to be done, like eating, feeding everyone in the house, and then falling on me to get things done, or break that hyper focus and dealing with the irritable fallout after and never being able to have a break. Okay, Alyssa, that sounds so hard, and I want to give you a big hug. Because it sounds like you're like the cleaner upper. And so I would encourage you to sit down with your family. I would really encourage you to have a family meeting time and talk about this issue and how you're going to delegate. Lists would be very useful so that you don't have to actually remind people of what they're doing, but they can see what the daily expectations are and then incentivize them in some way. Laura, lost time, procrastination, frustration, even angry when disturbed. Yes, because you're doing your thing and then someone comes in and interrupts you and they don't really understand the consequences of interrupting you, that you might not get back to what you were doing, that that you are, in a process, and they're not really sort of respecting that process. So I think it's important to kind of talk to our loved ones about hyperfocus when we're doing it and why, if it's for something, that is work related or school related or something like that. Thank you. Gaming disorder, yes, is from the WHO. You're welcome, Alana. Both me and my son are dyslexic, and reading is a real chore. It would be great to have video courses from you, the first concert or teacher that has not bored me. You get it. Thank you. Right to my heart. Thank you so much. Susan, you can hear me fine today. Yay! Thank you, Annie, for posting my summit. I did a webinar this week on perfectionism. I encourage you to check it out. Ray, you missed the talk, but no problem. You can click that and go see it. Okay. Amanda, I've started a weekly diary when I can hyper focus on my special interests. Timing is important, but it is still really hard to stop, or if I get disturbed. Sabrina, my daughter is 11 years old with ADHD. I'm trying to find ways of how to get her to transition away from something she's highly focused on. I have been verbally giving her a countdown. I love that. For example, you have 10 minutes more till you need to get ready for dinner, and break it down every 5 minutes. Is this something that is good for her to do, or do you have another way for me to help her redirect and focus? No, that is perfect. Mwah! I love it. It's fantastic. And then when you get to the end, you can say, I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, and then 3 is the end. So that they have a sense that I was always a kind of a softie with my kids. I did 1, 2, 2.5, 3. So that when I said 3, they knew I meant business. And then that would mean you may not earn your bonus or your reward that we discussed. And you want those to be collaborative conversations. The 3 types of procrastination are productive, avoidant, and perfectionistic. And I talk about that in my seminar from the other day, my webinar. Okay, so I want to say a few things about how you can help manage your kids' hyperfocus. So we talked a little bit about having, a schedule and using an incentive plan. You also want to help your child, as I said, find an interest that removes them from that isolated time where they're in hyperfocus and fosters social interaction, whether it's music, cooking, playing a sport, engaging in some kind of activity, not a chore, something that is fun. It may be lower on the dopamine, reward system scale of fun, but it's still fun. It's hard to get off your computer and do your homework or do chores. So we need an in-between. You can also use the end, particularly of a TV show. This is much harder with gaming because there's never an end. While it may be difficult to pull a child out of a state of hyperfocus, if you can use markers such as the end of a show or a particular achievement in a game, that can help them refocus their attention. Now, as adults, how can you harness your hyperfocus? You want to prioritize daily tasks and accomplish one at a time. This can help you keep you from spending too much time on any one thing. And so we want to break things down into smaller chunks so you can work on something, feel a sense of accomplishment, and then work on something else. You want to set a timer to keep yourself accountable, whether it's a tomato timer or a time timer or your phone, to remind you that this is a box of an activity, and there are other things that also need to be completed or paid attention to. You could ask a friend, colleague, or family member to call or email you at a specific time. This can help break up intense periods of hyperfocus, and maybe you can have a buddy who can help you with that. You can enlist your buddies or a family member, someone you trust, to assist you with that. Ultimately, the best way to cope with hyperfocus is not to fight it by forbidding certain activities, but rather to harness it and set limits around it. Um, Making school or work as stimulating in some way can capture this hyperfocus in the same way as your favorite activities. What would need to happen for that to occur? So one of you said that work is really boring and you wish it wasn't, and it's hard to focus. So what could you do when work is boring? Is there or can you listen to music on your headphones? Can you break after 30 minutes and talk to someone at the water cooler for 5 minutes? What can you do to help you? Because the hope is that you can, in your work, you can apply the parts of you that are special and warm and wonderful that I see here every week, so that they can truly shine. Okay, so I'm going to take some more comments because there's 40 of them and I hardly know how I'm going to get through them all. I'm guilty of underestimating time completion often, says Brandon. You're welcome, Faith. Working from home has really improved my productivity because other people are not constantly bothering me and getting me into conversations. That sounds good. I like that idea. Sabrina, you're welcome. I think it's, Amanda, important to remember that hyperfocusing can help in burnout. So when a person has been in a demanding environment and they need that time to regulate, that's true. It can feel like you're feeding yourself with your hyper-focused activity because it's something you really enjoy. So that's why you want to put it into a routine or some kind of schedule. Jojo, coming back to the 3 types of procrastination. How is productive procrastination defined? Yes, productive procrastination, and I'm pretty sure I did a Facebook Live on this. You can also check my website because I have a blog on productive procrastination. Productive procrastination is when you choose to do other tasks that are less demanding and easier than a task that you need to get to and at hand. So you feel like you're accomplishing things. I'm neatening up my desk, I'm filing my papers, but I'm actually not getting down to create that seminar I need to do. Basil says, some things I had to task for a lawyer. You couldn't handle it. That's great. Stacy, I have a hard time at work lately because my boss wants me to switch from thing to thing constantly. I hate this. I want to finish one thing at a time. Stacy, I actually think, is there a way to have a conversation with your boss that about how you work and how you can work most efficiently? So could you have some portion of time where you're switching and some time where you're attending to a longer term project? I think that might be more rewarding and might be satisfying for your boss as well. I wish there was a better word than chunks. LOL. All right, how about small pieces? Bits. I'll work on that, Susan. Chunks, got it. I love Alexa. She's my good friend. Housework. Did the kitchen and hall, and we'll do the living room declutter. Great. Good for you, Basil. Can you please explain how having a buddy can work for helping focus on tasks? Thank you so much for this Facebook Live. Oh, you're welcome, Melissa. Having a buddy can help you because I think that a lot of times people with ADHD and even people without it need someone to kind of help them, do something that's really hard for them. And that, you can sort of say, okay, we're going to focus on this task, or here we are, we're meeting for 2 hours. What are you going to work on in this 2 hours? Here's what I'm going to work on. Let's meet back in an hour and a half and check in, see how we're doing. I'm in the process of contemplating and hopefully writing a second book. And I realized that I need something, I need some accountability. So I reached out to a couple friends and I said, who wants to work on Fridays from 10 to 12? And a couple people said yes. And one of them shows up, two of them show up regularly. And, we check in, what are we working on? And then we get started. It's fantastic because it actually makes me do it. So that's what I'm talking about. Lorelei, I feel when I hyperfocus on something, it involves a lot of mental energy for me. I will get the spaced out feeling for 5 seconds or so and may forget where I am. It gets scary for those 5 seconds. Not sure if others experience it. I'm not surprised at that, and thank you for sharing that, because there is a kind of dreamlike state to hyperfocus, and I would imagine that it could be scary when you're sort of when you check back in, kind of feeling uncertain or ungrounded. Let's see, body double. Thank you, Annie. Okay, great. Let's see, there are fitness coaches. Does organization provide something? No, it doesn't. And that's not what Adhd does. Well, we got through all the comments. That is fantastic. Thank you all so much for joining me. You've inspired me to write something on hyperfocus. So I think I'll put that in, I'll write my blog on my website next week on hyperfocus. So check that out, or maybe we'll put it up, put something for Adhd as well. And